One of the strangest practices when a king, monarch, emperor or famous person died was to make a plaster cast of their face showing their profile when they died. Death masks were usually cast from the corpse, and some people desperately did not want one after their death, including Queen Victoria, who felt repulsed that a mould of her dead face would be taken when she passed. But one was made anyway by the insistence of Kaiser Wilhelm. But why were these morbid images made, and who in history had a death mask made? To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. From the Middle Ages until the 1800s, the purposes of the death mask was to create a statue or a bust for a deceased person, and sculptors would then use the death mask to make this artwork. But it was around the 1800s that death masks began to become rather valuable and treasured. In some cultures they often had funeral masks. For example, in ancient Egypt, as part of the mummification process, a pharaoh would usually have a large ornate mask. The most famous one of these is from Tutankhamun. His was made from gold and gems, and shows the ruler in his best light. In other European countries, the death mask was used for monarchs when effigies would be made. Often these were displayed at huge state funerals, and sometimes coffin portraits were used too, showing the dead person inside the wooden coffin. If someone's death was brutal and led to disfigurement of their face, then often hands would also be cast. For example, one Canadian statesman was shot in the face by a bullet when he was assassinated, and instead of a cast of his face, his hands were taken. But the masks of the deceased are a common tradition for different countries. In ancient Egypt, funeral masks were important parts of the process of burying a high-profile individual, and it was believed these would strengthen the spirit of the dead in the afterlife, though they would be protected from evil spirits by the mask. In 1876, when the Mycenae graves were found in Greece, the skulls had been covered with gold masks. The Romans used the practice during the funerals, and these were different as they were casted when the person was alive and then displayed after death. These often indicated a person's status and wealth, and many were buried with the person after. But in the Middle Ages, they were not interred, and they were often kept in libraries and museums as a reminder of the person, and as a lasting memory of their time. It wasn't just the royalty and the nobility who had a death mask, but there were many other people who would have it. From composers to military leaders, politicians, poets, scientists, and even writers. Napoleon's death mask shows him with his eyes closed tightly shut, but he does have his mouth open slightly, and looks in a rather calm state. I've also seen Oliver Cromwell's death mask, which can be found at Warwick Castle. This bears a likeness to the many portraits painted of him, and also contains his signature warts that were on his face. This helps to bring life to Cromwell's face, and helps future generations actually consider what he looked like. There were thousands more death masks taken, and still today it's happening. It was used in Russia also, and many Tsars had their faces casted before death, and Stalin had a death mask taken that is on display in Georgia. America used it, with 2 casts being taken of Abraham Lincoln, but these may have also been done before death. The process of a death mask could be rather distressing, as the casters would be fetched following the death, and they would cover the face in plaster and then take their mould. This could be distressing for the family as they wished to mourn, but they did serve an interesting purpose in science, as before photography it was used to conserve the facial features of unidentified bodies who were victims of murders. These could be used to then trace down who these people were, and relatives of a missing person could identify someone using a death mask. There was one death mask in which a young teenage girl's face was cast in France, after she had been found drowned in the Seine River in Paris around 1880. It was said of her face that her beauty was breathtaking, and showed few signs of distress at the time of passing. So bewitching that I knew beauty as such must be preserved, and it was said that this girl's face even drew comparisons to the Mona Lisa and other incredible paintings. Today, if you walk around a museum or a historical collection, you may come across a death mask of someone rather famous. They can appear rather eerie, as the person who it is may be disliked and unpopular, and maybe even a tyrant. Heinrich Himmler, the leader of the SS, in his death mask eerily appears as if he's smiling, having had the last laugh on his captors, as he had just taken his own life, and taken his crimes of the Second World War to the grave with him. They are a strange part of history, but one that is very interesting. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.